Today is Monday, Parashat Shelach Lecha. In this parasha, Moshe Rabbeinu sends spies to Eretz Canaan, there to tour the land and come back and give him a report. Unfortunately, out of the 12 people who he sent there to spy the land, 10 come back with a negative report, and only Yoshua bin Nun and Caleb ben Yefuneh come back with a positive report on the land that they just toured. But we see here a interesting connection that happens from the parasha of last week when Am Yisrael complained by Yukimit Onenim. They were complaining about the food that they had. So they spoke improperly. They misspoke. They used their power of speech in a negative way. Then afterwards we have the episode of Miriam, who spoke bad about Moshe Rabbeinu, even though she had good intentions. She wanted him to be back with Zipporah, and she spoke not in public, in private with Aaron. And of course Miriam loved Moshe. She was his sister, the one who even was responsible for him being born to some extent, because Amram, her father, had separated from Yocheved. He said, if we're going to have children, and the boys would be thrown in the river by Paro, and she told him, Paro may have decreed only on the boys, but you are more even strict than that. You by separating from Yocheved, even girls will not be born. So he came back with Yocheved, and that's how Moshe Rabbeinu was born. Yet, she spoke about Moshe Rabbeinu in a way that was negative. We have in this parasha, which is the next parasha after the one we read last week, again a situation with using the power of speech in a negative way. The spies who came back, the 10 spies, spoke bad about Eretz Israel. They started by saying something positive, actually, that it's a land that flows with milk and honey, and they even brought beautiful fruits from there, big, huge fruits. But their intention was to speak bad, to say Lashon Hara about Eretz Israel. And Rashi mentions, by the way, if somebody has a lie to say or something, to misrepresent about something, he will start by saying something of truth so that you'll believe what he's saying. Of course, it's a land that flows with milk and honey. Oh, except there are giants over there, and look at these fruits, they're huge. The people there are so big, there's no way we can match up to their force, to their power. And then Eretz Ochelet Yoshvea, every place where they went, there were people who were dying, and they spoke negatively. Well, people were dying. It was a blessing in disguise. The Hachamim explained that every place they went, there was a funeral, so people would be busy with the funeral rather than notice people who obviously didn't look like locals, so that it would not be suspected of touring the land as an enemy force. So it was a blessing in disguise that people were busy with their funerals, but they took it as something negative. And they made the Jewish people cry on that night. And unfortunately, that night was the 9th of Av, Tisha B'Av, which they cried, they're crying in vain. And in essence, they were told that they would cry for real, because the destruction of both temples happened on the 9th of Av. And throughout history, the 9th of Av was known as a date in our Jewish calendar that is a date that is very sad date, and many other calamities happened throughout history. And we see here the severity and the horrible results of Lashon Hara, of evil speech, of speaking bad, of misspeaking, whether it was speaking improperly with the people that complain. And then Miriam, even, she was a prophetess. She was stricken with tzara'at, with leprosy, because she was speaking bad about her brother, Moshe, even though she did it in private with Aaron. We see here in this parasha the horrible results of speaking bad even about the land. It's not about people. And it's something that is very much to be taken as a lesson, to be very careful how we speak about people. Lashon Hara is negative speech about someone, even if it's true. If it's not true, it's worse. It's called Otsa'at Diba. But if you're going to speak about someone in a negative way, it creates a prejudice about that person. It creates discord and conflict. It brings bad things into being. When a person speaks bad about another person, what he doesn't realize is not only in Shamayim, the folder of that person that you're speaking about is being open, but your own folder of merit and shortcomings is also open to see how yourself would stand up to analysis and to inspection. And also the person who's hearing the Lashon Hara, his folder is also open. And not just that, you speak about a fellow Jew that brings a kind of prosecution in Shamayim, because he said, Arevim zelazeh, we're all part of the same unit, we're all responsible for one another. So there is many, many negative aspects to speaking Lashon Hara. So careful we have to be, that our speech should be proper, that we should speak positively, that we should be careful what we say. Of course, there are times that we're obligated to speak. Somebody asks you of a reference on someone, and you know that that person, you've done business with him, and he's cheated you, or he's something that is risky. You have the obligation to give information if you ask for a recommendation. But even in there, you have to be careful to give only what you asked about, not more. And being very careful to not only add more to it, but to stay limited to what you're being asked about, and only to avoid from the person falling into a trap, to avoid him being harmed, but not just to talk just as information that would be not necessary and that would be negative about that person. So this is one of the lessons of the parasha of this week. Baruch Adonai le'olam. Amen ve'amen.